Well, it is really good to be hosting another clip for you on our Honest Conversations in our returns back to our groups. Today we're going to be looking at topic 4, which is what does discipleship look like for young people emerging from COVID? And really, in our natters and discussions, we're going to break this up into 2 sections because, firstly, we're going to talk about what is discipleship? What do we actually mean when we say that word? And then look to how it does affect the young people. So, I'm joined with some of the legends of Urban Saints today, and it is so exciting to have them all. They've been pulling my leg because I said last time I was talking to my favourites. So today I'm talking to the legends. And they're also my favourites. I just like a lot of people. So we're going to just crack that open. And yeah, what is discipleship? Wilson, do you want to take the lead there?
Okay, well, suppose that particular question is a question that to wrestle with quite a bit, and interestingly, just even as church, we've been wrestling. What do we actually mean by this word discipleship? And sometimes we're quite narrow in focus and think it only speaks to our Christian walk within church or the group that you belong to. And as we wrestle with it, as we wrestle with Scripture, I believe actually that discipleship talks and encompasses our whole life. If you look at the life of Jesus, he builds us up, yes, in the word and the story of the gospel, but actually he also goes on to tell us about how we order our life and speaks into that. So how we do business, how we are husbands, how we're wives, how we're parents, and how we follow Jesus in all of life, really. So that has major then implications in how we work with young people. And so we're interested in the whole life, the whole following with Jesus in all of life, in school and football and whatever it is they're interested in. So that would be my kind of understanding and wrestling so far with this term of discipleship. It's actually a very broad all of life implication. So
that couldn't be further away really from what the church has often talked about. For example, we would talk about a discipleship course, and with the best of intentions. I'm nothing against what the content of those, but the idea is that discipleship is about something that happens when you just become a Christian, and it goes on for 6 weeks, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Says he, after 40 odd years of following Jesus. That doesn't mean I'm particularly slow at it, although I may be. But actually, it is that, as Wilson said, it is that whole life thing. And also just the sense of if you confine it to a very short experiential thing, then that raises some questions for me about when does discipleship start. So when Jesus called his disciples, they didn't understand everything. They weren't perfectly following Jesus at that point. They were following him and beginning a journey. And at the end of 3 years of his public ministry, in the run up to the crucifixion, they still didn't get it. It's still, Peter was still there saying, no, you don't need to go through all this. And even after the resurrection, the disciples, as they're described on the road to Emmaus, still didn't understand. And Jesus came to them graciously and walked alongside them, and that's really key. And there was this amazing Bible study that went on there as he just brought some revelation to them. And so discipleship is a long-term thing. It's really important.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's kind of, for me, it's that kind of relational walking alongside someone. If you look at, I think in Matthew 4, when Jesus called his 2 disciples, they haven't a clue what they're being called to. They just kind of drop everything and follow them in the whole lifestyle. And for me, words are very symbolic, and Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee. So when he calls the 2 to walk alongside with them, it says, for me, that's what's key. Is kind of discipleship for me is about walking alongside somebody through their life. Not just for 6 months, a year, 2 years. It's that you're called to walk the journey with them forever, really.
Yeah, I know one of my favourite death quotes is from a theologian, Dallas Willard, and he said, discipleship is a process of becoming like Jesus as if he was you. And so it totally tag teams with everything that's been said, is that it's this holistic approach. And I think one key aspect of discipleship is I think that there's always a place where you're always leader and student. There'll be times where you'll be leading and showing your life before others and showing your God colours, showing the character that's been built in you through how you're evolving and growing. But then there'll be a time where you'll be the student gaining and learning from that. And I think discipleship is a lifelong learning of you with God, you with others, and the beautiful embrace of who we grow to be. So I think if we're trying to put some language to what discipleship is, which has been an age-old conversation throughout the many years of the church, I think that's probably what we're summing up within our urban saints context, is that it's a long walk in the same direction, a motto that we've always stood for such a long time. And so the discipleship is looking wholeheartedly at the body, soul and spirit of every individual.
There's probably something very important to say as well about the cost of discipleship, which does then, it builds into the bigger picture of what discipleship is and gets us away from this kind of program kind of mentality, where, like I said earlier on, Jesus taught the gospel, but then he also taught how to order your life, your business and all that there. And it's all well and good teaching that, but in discipleship, the question our young people or my kids are asking is, well, how does that make a difference in your life? So it's going to be costly and inconvenient at times, because you're given access to if we're going to journey properly, it's not every Sunday or Saturday. It's access almost all the time. Okay, there's practicalities around that, but it's access to your life. And how is it what you're telling me and what we see in Scripture actually influence the way Wilson you run or lead your family, or how you do your business dealings and things like that there. So there is a cost, because it's opening up. Yep, I want to journey with you, but that means I'm opening up my life, so you can see, and goes the other way too when you're being discipled by those further on in the journey. So yeah, I think there's something important there around not only how do we define the actual discipleship, but what's it look like, and how much does it cost us?
That's totally what I was relating to, discipleship being sometimes you're the teacher, sometimes you're the student, in the whole view of opening up your world and your life. So
for group leaders who are watching this, and for us as group leaders ourselves, that raises a question in my mind, which is at what point does discipleship start? If we're making disciples and we're setting out not just to run a group for a group of young people, but to make disciples of individual young people in the context of our working with a group, when does that begin? And it doesn't begin at a point of commitment to Christ. It begins at the point when we begin to interact with them, when our life begins to impact theirs, when they walk into our group meeting for the first time, or they appear on our Zoom call for the first time because they've been invited by a friend or whatever. And the relationship begins. That's when the discipleship begins. And hopefully, as that discipleship walking alongside goes on, we'll see them make significant steps of faith, and we'll see them enter into all of the exciting things that God has in store for them. But it actually just begins with a hi Mandy, or hi whatever your name is, and those introductions and that beginning of that relationship.
And so what your thoughts might be, we'd love you to comment. We'd love you even to discuss this with your full team, and maybe even if you had maybe some trainee young leaders, or there's just those young people that have made some sense of being part of your group. You can even have this as a conversation with them, and add your comments on the platform where you're going to see this, and interact with it, because we would love to hear how we're all walking towards this whole area of discipleship.